Howdy, folks. Justin here. Welcome to episode 4 of From Loser to Legend, where we will help turn you from this guy up top, who has no collection, or a crappy collection, to this guy over here, who has a great collection. Look at that medal. It's a symbol of a fantastic collection. And the sunglasses. We're going to talk today about building a collection, um, ways you can start progressing your collection early in the game, as well as some cards that you should include in your collection early on because they show up in a lot of decks that you're going to be running. So, let's get started. Remove our fantastic picture there. Okay, so talk about a few things today. The first thing you do when you start the game is you start in story mode. And I recommend that the very first thing you do is play through story mode. Story mode is 20 some games, I think, culminating with this one really tough battle at the end. But story mode does a great job of both introducing you to the mechanics of the game and providing you with a whole bunch of cards. As you finish some of these matches, what you do is you're given entire new decks from the for the rewards. And a lot of these decks are pretty reasonable to take under the ladder when you're rank 12 and you're just starting out. And they also just give you a bunch of cards that you can then put into your own decks or modify these starting decks to be more in line with what you're trying to play. You start at the beginning with a very simple introduction, and then a couple times throughout this, you even get the opportunity to pick up legendary cards. At the end, you're given the choice between Tyr, a yellow-red unique legendary creature, and Orb of Vermina. Just a small bit of advice for that. I would encourage you to take Tyr. That card is playable. It's kind of a niche card, but it's playable, which is more than I can say about Orb of Vermina right now, although I would love to see that be a thing. But yeah, playing through story mode is a fantastic way to just start your collection off. You get some lore, you get a little bit of an RPG type feel to it as you go through it. It's a lot of fun, and it'll also help you gain some levels. And in Elder Scrolls Legends, there are 50 levels, and every time you level up, you get rewards. A lot of these are going to be based on your avatar, which we talked about briefly already in Loser to Legend 1. But you can choose an avatar from any of the races that are big in the Elder Scrolls lore, and those avatars then will determine, not all the time, but some of the time, the types of rewards you get. So if you have more questions about how the avatar impacts what your rewards will be, make sure you check out Loser to Legend episode 1, where we go into a little bit more detail about that. But just make sure that, if you're thinking about buying some packs or you're thinking about doing something like that or crafting a card, maybe you want to wait until you've just leveled up once more. You get legendary cards from leveling up. You get ones unique to your avatar at levels 24 and 32, and then you also get a couple upgrades along the way. You get these slightly less powerful versions of legendary cards when you complete the story mode. And then as you level up, they turn into really impressive and playable in very powerful constructed deck cards like Supreme Atromancer. You pick up one of these, and one of my favorite cards in the game, if not my favorite card in the game, absolutely, Blood Magic Lord. So making sure that you're progressing in gaining levels is a super great way to supercharge your collection. And don't forget too that even a loss is going to give you some of these cards. So don't feel too bad if at the beginning when you're playing with these pre-constructed decks that you get when you start the game, you're not winning a whole lot, because as you level up, you're quickly going to be getting a lot of gold, which you can use to do other things that can supercharge your collection, which we'll talk about in just a second. And you're going to be getting cards, which will just go into decks that you want to play. The first thing that you may be rewarded with that is not a card or gold is a ticket to play Arena. And I would encourage you to hop into Solo Arena to do that. This is a really interesting thing that's unique to Elder Scrolls Legends among these types of games, where you can play against 9 AI opponents. You draft a deck, and giving the free ticket to you is a great way to learn the ins and outs, the ropes of how to play against the AI. And a lot of those skills then are going to translate to your drafting against real players in Versus Arena. But playing the first couple levels of Solo Arena after you've completed the story mode or halfway through the story mode is a really great way to get some skills, play with cards you don't have yet that you might want to consider crafting after you've seen how good they are, as well as get some fantastic rewards. Your very first successful Solo Arena run, you're going to get rewarded with a legendary card called Adoring Fan, which I will bring up here for you to check out. And it's a fun card to play with. You get a title for playing it in Constructed. There it is. And you also get a bunch of soul shards, which are the crafting um, material in this game, which you can use to make new cards. And you also get gold, which you can then use to play more arena if you'd like. Every time you advance in levels in Solo Arena, and there are, I believe, 9 levels, 7 or 9 levels in Solo Arena, you get a promotion reward, and that promotion reward is an extra 50 gold on top of the reward you're already getting. So these early Solo Arena levels are fantastic because you're going to be getting a lot of stuff, a lot of packs, a lot of cards, a lot of soul shards, and a lot of gold, which you can then use to play the first, 2, 3, maybe even 4 Solo Arena runs without having to be too concerned about having an unsuccessful run, because the first several levels of Solo Arena are pretty easy. Especially if you played through the story mode and you understand the basic mechanics of the game and you've, say, been watching from Loser to Legend for a few weeks now. But Solo Arena is a great way to early on get some great rewards. After you're getting pretty good at Solo Arena, I would encourage you to use some of the gold you've collected by leveling up and playing Solo Arena in Versus Arena. Versus Arena is a 7. You're trying to get 7 wins as opposed to the 9 wins you're trying to get in Solo Arena. But in Versus Arena, you're playing against real players, and you level up in this just like you level up in Solo Arena. So when you have a successful run, again, you're going to get a 50 gold promotion bonus on top of the 150 gold you can already get for a perfect run. Not even perfect, just a 7-win run. You can lose up to twice before before your run is over. You lose 3 times your run's over. But this is another way to just really charge your collection up. The rewards in Versus Arena are noticeably better than they are in Solo Arena. The difficulty level, of course, is a little bit higher as well, so you probably want to start with Solo Arena and then move into Versus Arena. After you have wet your teeth, or whet your appetite, or whatever the expression is, in Solo Arena, and you tried out some Versus Arena as well, and you're gaining levels by playing at the higher ranks, the lower ranks, depending, higher number. Uh, you get what I'm saying. Round rank 12, 10, 8 in on the ladder, and collected some gold that way. You're probably going to start thinking that you want to build some cards and craft some cards yourself. I would encourage you to never buy packs if you have the time to do an arena run, because even a 3-win, 4-win run in the arena is going to be better value for your gold than just buying packs. Um, but after you do that, you can grind out soul shards in practice mode. And in order to do that, I have come up, because I've done this myself when I'm just about to where I want to craft a card and I just don't feel like playing on a ladder, or like lately, since for the last 5-6 days, I just haven't been playing on a ladder because it's just not been feeling right for me. I would encourage you to create an incredibly aggressive deck, and I have an example here for you guys, something that you should be able to craft pretty easily, pretty quickly after completing the story mode and maybe running a few arena runs. There's nothing in this deck that's not a rare or a common. It's incredibly aggressive, and you can take this into practice mode, and against the expert AI in practice mode, you get 15 soul shards per win, and you can win up to like 300 soul shards a day if you have an hour or two to do this. This deck averages about 3 or 4 minutes for a win, and if you're going to lose, it's going to be obvious very quickly. You can just concede and start over again, no loss to you. You also get experience playing against the practice AI, so you're going to be able to gain levels and gain more cards that way as well. The last thing I wanted to talk about is that we are doing well, actually, 2 things. First of all, I have an announcement to make. Um, we have hit 1,500 subscribers, which I am super excited about. And as a result, last time for 1,000 subscribers, our celebration, I talked about my story, where I was coming from, why I love this game, and why it's important to me. We're going to be doing something a little bit different this time. if you have anything you'd like to ask me about the game, about myself, my life, my opinions on things, if that's something you're interested in finding out, be it space travel or, my favorite kind of coffee, whatever you want to ask, in the comments for this video, write question, the word question, then an exclamation mark, and then follow it up with any question you have. And when we do our 1,500 subscriber celebration here in a day or two, I will read your name and the question out loud, and then I will answer the question. And we're going to be doing some pack openings and just having a great time celebrating that milestone. So uh, please ask as many questions as you'd like. We'll try to get to everything. The only thing I'm going to ask is that you don't ask about politics and you don't ask about religion. I'm just not interested in sharing my opinions on these things because I feel like I'd rather keep this as positive as possible. But don't hesitate to ask things that may be personal in nature or sort of emotionally involved. I'm just not interested in raising any contentious issues that might cause a divide in our community. So I'm really excited about that. The last thing I wanted to talk about then is that there are a handful, let's see here, of cards that I think are essential to everybody's collection that when you're building up your early collection, you're going to want to try to get a hold of. I got a couple cards for each color that I think that are really important to craft early because they go in a lot of decks. We're going to start with red since that's where we're at. The first card we're going to look at is Skaven Pyromancer. I think Skaven Pyromancer is a very powerful, very useful card. You can put it in a more aggressive deck, you can put it in a more controlling deck, and you can get a lot of value out of this. It's kind of a skill testing card, and it's one that as you play with, you're going to, even if you're not trying to get better at this game, playing with this card is going to present you with a lot of opportunities to make certain moves that you can be rewarded with or screwed over by later in the game that will help you become a better player. And since the whole idea here is taking us from loser to legend, I felt like Skaven Pyromancer was a great card to help you in the early parts of your collection experience. The other two cards that I want to point out here are Burn and Pillage, which is a fantastic removal spell. It's an epic, so it's going to cost a little bit more to craft, but this is one of the few cards in the game that just really, really, really rewards you for playing an incredibly aggressive deck. And red is the most aggressive color in my opinion, although, well, we'll just leave it at that for right now. And Burn and Pillage is a really powerful, unique effect that is essential to a lot of strategies that red employs. And the other card that I wanted to talk about for red for strength is Triumphant Jarl. Triumphant Jarl is an incredibly powerful effect. It's one of very few cards in this game that draws cards at all, and the fact that it draws two is even more impressive. Being in such an aggressive color, the drawback, if you will, that it only triggers when you have more life than your opponent, is not as unreliable as it might seem at first. You just got to kind of build your deck, with the idea being that you want to trigger Triumphant Jarl. Triumphant Jarl is a lot of fun to play, not a lot of fun to be on the receiving end of, but it's the kind of card that can really, really bring you into the closing parts of the game after an aggressive start. So I would encourage you to check out Triumphant Jarl. It goes very well with Burn and Pillage. In Intelligence, there's three cards I wanted to take a look at that I think are essential for anybody's early collection. The first of these cards is Crystal Tower Crafter. Crystal Tower Crafter is sort of a build-around card on the surface. That's what it appears to be like, oh, I got to play all these actions and stuff. But the truth of the matter is that a 2/2 for 2 is not bad. And just playing one spell that gives it a bonus can allow you to do all sorts of favorable trades against other 2-drops. And if this guy escalates out of control because you cast 3, 4, 5 action spells, well, you're going to probably win the game. Crystal Tower Crafter is a common card. It's a great card and definitely one I think that everybody should have in their starting collection. Another one that is even simpler than that is Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt is one of the best removal spells in the game. It's one of the best prophecy cards in the game, and it is a very, very simple to understand card that is incredibly powerful. I don't know of any blue decks that do not run copies of Lightning Bolt. Make sure you have Lightning Bolts in your collection. It's a great card that you're going to be rewarded for playing all the time. And finally, I wanted to show you one epic that I think is important in this color, and that is Ice Storm. Ice Storm is one of the few mass removal spells in the game. 3 damage to all creatures, and there are ways to abuse this, of course, if you're running creatures with ward, so that the first time they take damage, they just lose the ward and don't take the damage. Or just by running larger creatures that are going to survive this effect. Ice Storm can be a lot of fun. You can run this with, a more aggressive deck. You can run this with a more controlling deck. You can use this as a Oh shit button if that's the sort of thing your deck might need. Ice Storm is a really great card that I highly recommend you get a hold of early on. Okay, now in Willpower or Yellow, there's three cards that I wanted to take a look at. The first of which is Fifth Legion Trainer. This is a rare card. A very powerful effect. Every time you summon a creature, it gets +1/+0. And it fits into a lot of decks that run yellow. It's part of a very linear token strategy, but it also, is pretty useful in monk decks. It's useful in spell sword decks. It can be useful in the mage token deck, which isn't as popular as it has been lately, but I think is still pretty powerful. And it's good in Crusader. So a lot of different decks run this card. It's playable in a lot of color combinations, and it's just a great rate. I definitely recommend you get some Fifth Legion trainers in early on. The other two cards I wanted to mention in Willpower are probably one of the most controversial cards in the game right now. That is Divine Fervor. This card is all over the place in some in certain levels of play in certain ranks, but this is a very powerful effect. It gives all your creatures +1/+1 as long as it's in play. Fantastic to combine with cards like Imperial Reinforcements. Um, and it's just a wonderful effect. You can play this in a mid-range deck. You can play this in a aggro deck. I've even seen it in some control lists that are trying to squeeze out extra value from some of their creatures. It's one of the few support cards that is widely played, and it is a wonderful baseline of an example of how powerful a 4-drop support card should be, against which other support cards like Hidden Trail are judged, and unfortunately for them, judged pretty harshly. So I definitely recommend you get a hold of some Divine Fervors. And finally, Piercing Javelin is a card I think is essential to anybody's early collection. This card is played in all levels of play. It's probably one of the most impactful prophecy cards in the game. It can destroy any creature on the board. Uh, and if you trigger this off of Prophecy, it's just fantastic. But the great thing about Piercing Javelin is that for 5 Magicka, it's a pretty good rate already. I mean, even without triggering the Prophecy, 5 Magicka is a pretty reasonable cost to destroy any creature on the board. I think this is one of the cards that everybody playing Willpower runs, everybody playing Yellow, and I think you should definitely get a hold of some of those. And I'll look at Green Agility. We're going to start off with another controversial, perhaps, card, Fighters Guild Recruit. I think Fighters Guild Recruit is very great. It's got all it is 3 keywords, and it's a 1/2 creature, but those keywords are powerful: Prophecy, Guard, and Lethal. Along with Lightning Bolt and Piercing Javelin, I think this they are the trifecta of the most powerful prophecy cards, at least defensively for sure, that you can trigger. We're going to get to one more powerful prophecy card here in a second, and you might be able to guess what it is. But I think Fighters Guild Recruit, because it's a common card, is one that you should definitely craft and make sure you have in your collection as soon as possible. Its ability to trade with anything for 2 Magicka is just, unparalleled, really. We got 2 more cards in these colors we're going to look at. The next one being Moonlight Werebat. I know a lot of people don't like this card. Don't like playing against this card. I have some mixed opinions on whether this card is okay power level wise. But Moonlight Werebat is an incredibly powerful card. If you trigger this off of your first rune being broken, your opponent may be hard pressed to ever come back in that game. If you're planning on playing agility, any kind of agility deck, in my opinion, you need to craft your Moonlight Werebats as soon as possible. This card is fantastically powerful. The Prophecy and Drain, again, sort of like the Fighters Guild Recruit, just 2 keywords are all that make this creature powerful. But it is so powerful that I think it belongs in every single deck running green. And finally, the last card we're going to look at here is, in my opinion, the most powerful removal spell in the game, and that is Leaf Lurker. Leaf Lurker is another epic. You may notice I pointed out 2 epics in these colors, but green is in such a powerful place right now that I think it's okay to recommend that you try to craft a couple of epics in these colors, because Leaf Lurker at 5 Magicka for a 4/3 is going to do the same amount of work a lot of the times that Piercing Javelin is going to make, except it also gives you a 4/3 creature on the board, which is incredibly powerful. This is the definition of a 2-for-1, a card advantage like we talked about in From Loser to Legend 3. Leaf Lurker belongs in almost every green deck. There are some incredibly aggressive green decks, like my yellow-green Goblins deck, Yellow-Bellied Goblins, that don't run Leaf Lurker, but it might be right to run it in that deck too. Leaf Lurker is an essential part of a lot of strategies, and I definitely think that you should craft these if you're interested in playing agility early on. Finally, we're going to look at Endurance, or Purple, and it got some pretty straightforward cards in this one, but some very powerful cards, and fortunately some, for the most part, pretty cheap cards. We've got Windkeep Spell Sword. This is a wonderful baseline for a powerful 2-drop creature. The 2 Magicka 2/2 might remind people of Shielded Minibot from Hearthstone, but this is just a wonderfully powerful card that's very likely to either trade up into a more expensive minion because you're swinging into it twice, or just get a 2-for-1 and generate card advantage because you're removing 2 other small creatures with it. Also combos well with Ice Storm, because if you've got this creature on the board and you cast Ice Storm, your Windkeep Spellsword is likely to still survive because it still has its ward. Windkeep Spellsword is an essential part of a lot of strategies that run purple, and I definitely recommend that you craft it. 2 more cards in these colors, and a couple of my favorite cards. Preserver of the Root is the epic from Willpower that we're looking at. It is a 4/4 for 4, already completely playable card, and then you see the extra text, which really puts it over the top. +2/+2 in guard while you have 7 or more max Magicka. It's not hard to get to turn 7. There are definitely situations where you might not, like if you're playing against the mono red deck we have there on the side still. But Preserver of the Root is super powerful. I think it goes into almost every deck that can run purple. You know, whether it's Warrior, whether it's Spell Sword. I'm sorry, Spell Sword. Well, yeah, Spell Sword. Whether it's Sorcerer or whether it's Scout, Preserver of the Root is likely to be a part of your list. At what is generally going to be a 6/6 guard for 4, you're hard pressed to find any creature in the game with better stats than that. And even if you're dropping it on turn 3 with the Elixir or turn 4 regularly as a 4/4 for 4, that's still going to trade with almost every 4 drop in the game. Finally, one of the most powerful cards in the game, in my opinion, certainly one of the most flexible, Shadowfen Priest. I think this card is essential. I think this card belongs in even some of the most aggressive decks that can run purple. This card can silence another creature, which can be great. But the real thing it can do, the really important thing I think it can do right now, that not a lot of cards in this game can do, is destroy an enemy support card. This includes Histgrove, which is a very popular card. This includes Divine Fervor, which we talked about. This includes such niche cards as Dark Rift, or Gladiator's Arena, or Mundus Stone. Shadowfen Priest is just an incredibly flexible card, and you're not really paying a whole lot of extra magic for that ability. At a 4/4 for 5, the effect, if you could think that it's just tacking on 1 extra Magicka cost, say, for this effect, you're looking at an incredibly undercosted card. I think Shadowfen Priest is great, and should definitely be part of anyone's early collection. And the last card we're going to look at is Crushing Blow. Crushing Blow belongs in everybody's collection. Crushing Blow fits into almost every deck. And think for a second how many creatures we talked about on this list of cards that I think are really important to have in your collection that Crushing Blow removes. Off the top, just looking at my list right here, Crystal Tower Crafter, often going to be able to remove that. Skaven Pyromancer, 5th Legion Trainer, Moonlight Werebat, Leaf Lurker, Fighters Guild Recruit, Crushing Blow removes them all, and you can close out games with it. I think I said recently that I have won more games with Crushing Blow than any other individual card, and I believe that is definitely true. So, like I said, ask your questions in the comments below. Just write question mark, exclamation point, and then follow it up with any question. Just no politics, no religion. And then I'm going to show you a quick game against the Expert AI with the cheap mono red Soul Shard grinding deck I have here. And hopefully you'll be on your way to building up a great collection. I look forward to seeing you guys at our 1500 viewer celebration, where I'll be answering all these questions and opening some packs. I have a couple new decks coming out in the next couple days as the season rolls over and I start playing on Constructed again. And it's just an exciting time to be playing Legends. I hope this video helped, and join me next week for episode 5 next Sunday of From Loser to Legend, where we'll be talking about some more things. So thank you very much. Have a great evening, and I will see you on the ladder. Alright, to demonstrate what we're talking about, we are going to hop on to Expert AI versus mode with the super fast, super cheap deck I was talking about. And I can show you a way you can quickly and cheaply and efficiently, hopefully, grind out some soul shards to boost up your collection. We're playing against Silent Watcher, so we got One color versus no colors.
Time to fight.
It's really straightforward. All we were trying to do here is kill our opponent as fast as possible, as expediently as possible, so that we get the most bang for our buck, get the most effective use of our time.
This should be good.
That said, our opponents, I mean, they've got the honor curve crocodile and the crushing blow. Alright. Okay.
Bondar, curse you.
And all we're just trying to do is rush down our opponent. There's nothing fancy going on with our deck here.
This should be good.
We are just trying to go as fast as possible.
Come and warm yourself. For the grave.
My arrows shall fly true.
This game shouldn't take more than just a couple minutes. All our cards do face damage, and we should have a kill next turn. And this took us maybe 2 minutes. And even if he has a prophecy here, we have raiding party to shore up our defense or shore up our offense. We don't need it. All right, I believe that game took about 60 seconds, and for our efforts, we are rewarded with 15 soul shards. And this is a super cheap deck. There's nothing fancy in it. I showed the deck beforehand when I was talking about things, but here we go. Just nothing better than rare. Just cards that you probably pick up in your packs or got through playing through the campaign. A lot of fun, really easy. Ba-bam. Thanks for joining us, guys. I will see you next week. And don't forget to ask your questions. Like I said earlier, ask your questions in the comments of this video with just write question, exclamation point, and then whatever you'd like to ask about, whether it's about me personally, about the game, how I feel about the game, about pickles, about cats, about anything like that. The things I will not talk about are religion and politics. Beyond that, it's pretty much fair game, and I will respond to your questions in our 1500 celebration video. Thanks much, and I will see you next time, everybody. Bye-bye.